Why don't we get started at 6:11 or 6:30? So we want to find a seat. We have refreshments here, just by way of logistics. The restrooms are down the hall to the right and the immediate left. Welcome everyone. My name is Mike Schroeder. I'm Vice President of Lebanon Pipeline Awareness. And on behalf of Lebanon Pipeline Awareness and concerned citizens of Lebanon County, I want to thank folks for coming out. We conceived of this as an opportunity for elected officials to hear your story. Elected officials get ample opportunity, as you know, to say their piece. This is an opportunity, now that we can see the pipeline revolution unfolding here in Lebanon and Lancaster counties and beyond, we thought it would be a good opportunity to provide landowners, property owners, and other affected individuals an opportunity to have their voice heard. So this is a pipeline listening session. We've invited elected officials, we've invited candidates to public office. Will the elected officials please just stand? We're not going to identify you by name, we'll just so folks know who are elected officials here. Great, thank you. And thank you for coming. And would candidates for public office please stand? Okay. So again, thank you for coming. This is going to be pretty informal. What we're going to do is we're just going to run through and give each speaker about 3 minutes in order to say their piece, because we have a good number of people on our queue who have something to say. And so we're going to begin with folks in Lebanon County. Landowners, property owners, and others who are directly affected by pipeline construction. And so, anything else by way of general introduction? I don't think so. So why don't we begin? And our official timekeeper is over here. Ted, you want to raise up your little card there? Yellow means you got about 30 seconds left, and then the red, as we all know, that means stop. That means time's up. And so what I'm going to do is read off the first 3 names, so that way we know sort of who's coming next, and then after the first 3, then I'll read off the next 3. Any questions about anything? Great, again, thank you for coming. So why don't we start? We're going to begin with Phil Stover, West Cornwall Township, move to Clay Collins of West Cornwall Township, and Ben Martinez of South Lebanon Township.
Mike, one more thing.
Oh, and we also have, if you have something to say, but you are hesitant to stand up in front of a crowd and speak and actually say it, we have little cards that you can write down a question that we can read then and you can have your voice heard that way as well. Here you go.
Thanks, Mike. In soccer, the red card gets you thrown out, so I hope I don't see the red card. My name is Phil Stover, and I own and operate Barefoot Organics at Greystone Farm, USDA certified organic produce and pastured poultry farm in West Cornwall Township, Lebanon County. My farm is, as the crow flies, about 2 miles from here, and from Sunoco's pumping station just down the road, erected here in the township, by the way, initially without the proper permits. It's also approximately 800 feet from the 83-year-old repurposed pipeline Sunoco thought would be a good idea to run highly volatile pressurized ethane and butane gas through, and coursing gently and directly through my property is Smith's Creek, the once pristine American trout stream that over the past 8 months has experienced 3 inadvertent returns of drilling mud made up of dirty slurry water and bentonite clay. The pipeline officials say bentonite clay is an organic compound, it's no big deal. So I decided to do some research on what exactly is bentonite clay, and is it benign when it is spilled into our waterways. I discovered it is made up of phyllosilicate clay, consisting mostly of montmorillonite, with side effects that cause itchiness of the skin, headaches, muscle pain, and tiredness. I'm not sure what it does if it makes its way into your well and you drink it, or as the pipeline officials might say, no big deal. You might say I feel a direct and existential threat from the Mariner East pipeline because not only has it impacted me and my farm directly, fouling Smith's Creek, but the bigger picture of how all these pipelines affect agriculture in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania generally. It is a fact that it takes about 500 years for the natural world to produce 1 inch of topsoil. A bulldozer, 10 minutes to scrape it away, and an oil spill, about 10 seconds to render it unfit for food production. In the context of the frantic search for energy reserves, in light of what is happening within our national food system, we need to have the food and the environment conversation, two issues inextricably linked, now. As Franklin Delano Roosevelt said over 75 years ago, the history of every nation is eventually written in the way in which it cares for its soil. We urgently need to care for our Pennsylvania soil, and crisscrossing our land with thousands of miles of pipeline destroys the soil, which is the ultimate tragedy. Why? Because California, specifically the San Joaquin Valley, provides over 50% of the nation's fruit, nuts, and vegetables, largely on over 8 million acres of irrigated land. Beset by the effects of climate change, including reduced snowfall in the Sierra Nevada mountain range, and historically low outflows from the Colorado and Sacramento San Joaquin river systems, the long-term prospects for California as a produce basket for the rest of America are dim. Who is going to feed the people of Pennsylvania when California no longer can? And Lebanon and Lancaster County, with arguably some of the finest non-irrigated farmland in the world, can no longer raise healthy animals or grow nutritious fruit and vegetables because we've destroyed our environment and sold our children's future to the 21st century of the carpetbagger. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Clay Collins.
I had no idea I had an opportunity to say anything. My wife and I live at 65 North Cornwall Road, and we're 40 feet above the Smith Creek. We have a large enclosed glass porch, and we watch all kind of wild critters, blue heron, of course, there are even mink in the creek, and they chase the trout all around. We enjoy it very much. I walk along the creek, I walk along Zinn's Mill Road, and I'm 500 feet from the line where the pipeline is going under the Smiths and up over the hill toward the golf course. We've had 5 spills on the creek, and I have a friend who's involved with the Trout Association of Pennsylvania, and he tells me that clay from one of the Dakotas is toxic to trout. I haven't seen any dead trout. I think the blue heron is chasing a lot of them right now. But if it's deadly to the trout, is it deadly to the blue heron? I don't have the expertise that you have on the clay, but it seems to me that they're very, very careful about not wanting someone to see what they're doing. A friend that I called from the Trout Association went down and tried to take some pictures of the last blowout, and they called the sheriff. The pipeline group called the sheriff, and of course he called the sheriff too because he's a local fellow, and nothing came of it. But that's the kind of things that make me concerned when they don't want to be open about what's going on. I just have concern about the creek. And as I said, we live along there. We have about 300 feet along that creek, and we hope that it stays pristine like it is. That stream, I don't know if any of you know, that stream never freezes in the winter. There are so many springs along that trout stream that it never gets cold enough to freeze. And we have a spring at the bottom of our property comes out, it must be a foot across and a foot deep. It just flows right into there. Now I did check my well. My well is fine, thank goodness, and I'm glad for that. But we do have concerns, and I don't know where it goes from here, but that's really all. I didn't plan to say anything, I just planned to come to listen. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Collins. Ben Martinez,
I'm gonna.
you gonna pass?
Yeah, this is my first session. I'm
Sure.
here for information purposes.
Okay, very good, all right. Very good, then we'll move on. Then the next three speakers are Jamie Willard, Ben Bowe, and Lisa Dengler. So, Jamie?
I grew up in Lebanon County, went to school here and showed at the county fair. When I went off to Penn State, I was so proud to tell my classmates that I was from here. Now I'm disgusted and horrified to see these pipelines destroying arguably some of the best topsoil in the state. Most of my time this winter was spent monitoring construction, not something I wanted to do upon returning home from an extended trip abroad. Though to me, it still seems as the only way to protect and defend my home soil. My initial hope was for integrity in promises construction companies made. The contractor, Welded Construction, based in Toledo, Ohio, said in a briefing meeting prior to construction that protecting our environment is one of their #1 priorities. Yet an employee admitted to my face at the Quittahill Creek crossing that their goal was to finish as soon as possible to get out of our hair. That philosophy resulted in a notice of violation from Pennsylvania DEP for numerous citations occurred during the crossing. That was one of 2 notices of violation issued for work on one of the pipelines in Lebanon County in March of 2018, and very few consequences have been issued for these and numerous violations that have occurred in Pennsylvania. Now, I read the erosion and sediment control plan for the Atlantic Sunrise project. In the agreement included best management practices between the pipeline companies, federal regulators, and DEP. While visiting construction sites around Lebanon County, I witnessed the violations and reported them because I could not sit back and watch this Toledo company destroy beautiful streams and farmland of family and neighbors. During the stream crossing and monitoring since, I have noticed workers' license plates including Texas, Louisiana, West Virginia, Tennessee, Wyoming, Delaware, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, New Jersey, Virginia, Oklahoma. These workers exhibit a blatant disregard for our environment, property rights, communities, laws, and respect for landowners. Now, Lebanon County is in the south central region of DEP. There are 2 inspectors for the 16 counties. The inspectors have so much ground to cover that they can only seem to check construction sites when there are emergencies reported. Now, most of the inspection responsibilities fall on the county conservation districts. This winter, there was 1 individual who made pre-scheduled visits to construction sites in Lebanon County. Now, our inspector has been deservingly reassigned, and I assume is no longer available to inspect at the same level he was before. Now, how is this possible? There are 2 pipelines and not one regulating institution willing or able to ensure work is being done properly. Now that you've heard my thoughts, and you will hear many thoughts from other concerned Pennsylvanians, the people have a right to clean air, pure water, and the preservation of natural, scenic, and historic places of the environment. Our motive is to ensure that our inalienable rights as Pennsylvanians are upheld, and that there will be something worth passing on to the next generation. I strongly urge you to act, to do what you were elected to do, that the citizens of Pennsylvania elected to do. Help us ensure there is a positive future for Pennsylvania.
Benbow.
Well, I didn't really come up with a pre-written speech, so I'm just gonna kind of wing it. I live at the Hill Crossing. Jamie Broder is my niece. I work full-time and don't have time to hire the construction purposes, and kind of recruited my niece to do that, and she's been doing a fantastic job at that. Throughout the entire construction process, it seems like they do the cheapest, the quickest, and try to get away with anything they can possibly do. When my niece comes by, they know she's a hard one to gets the hide from. And it's funny, when she comes by, they catcall her. They know exactly who she is, and everything is just, it's unreal what they get away with. The one evening we were out watching, they were doing creek crossings, and my main concern was how far they were going to bury their pipe under the creek. Couldn't really get a specific answer out of them, so we were watching. We spent all night out watching. They had a track hoe that was up on my property, up on the hill, right in the middle of my pasture. It was sitting there running when we got down there. I'm kind of wondering why it was up there running with the lights on. Well, here I had a nice hydraulic oil leak right in the middle of my field. And it sat out there and ran for like 45 minutes. So then, we were watching them, and all of a sudden I saw it come down, pulled right next to the creek on top of my wetlands that I'd taken care of, and just can sit there and continue to leak. And then they saw my niece, and we started taking pictures. And then they quick shut it down. This is at 12 o'clock at night. So what are they doing with all this midnight construction? Who's watching them? Why do you think they're doing that? Because they can get away with stuff. Who's going to be out there watching them? So that tractor ran for an hour and a half of the oil spill. When they came down, they quick covered it all up because we were down there filming them with spotlights and everything else. And trying to hide it up. So then they cleaned up, after numerous calls to DEP and everybody else, they cleaned it up, and it sat down there right next to the creek for, what was it, 3 weeks? 55-gallon drums and a couple trash bags getting pushed around. When they first started construction, I told them I wanted the trees. Well, you aren't allowed your own trees. I said, why not? They're my trees. I have the right to this is my ground. This is my ground. Well, you don't allow your trees. So their comment was we weren't allowed to cross the property line. So what they do, they truck them all out of there and pull them up next to the road. Now, who got the money for that? I didn't get any money. I didn't get any financial compensation from that. Who made the money? Well, guess who made the money? They did. They either sold mats for timber mats to put on somebody else's property. So I'm the future property owner of the property, and I'm not even allowed to tell them where I'd like the pipe. So the pipe is coming right next to my barn, 50 feet off my barn, turns right in front of my barn at a 90-degree angle, and goes right in front of my barn and my two houses. 50 feet. I can sit in there and throw a rock right in the center of the pipe. That's how close it is. Then my best field that has topsoil that's 14 inches deep that I've taken care of, you know, put a lot of time and money into that field. It's all pushed in big piles, 300 foot wide. Turn a 45-degree angle, went right down through the middle of it. So now my property is 60 acres, not really enough to make a living at it. My idea was to put chicken houses up. Well, guess where that pipe's sitting? I have no place to put houses now. So how am I supposed to make a farm financially profitable? They could have easily moved the pipe off and went and rerouted the pipe a little bit to accommodate me as a property owner. So now, we never settled, and I'm one of the people in the eminent domain, so I have no rights. Now, as far as I know, the last time I looked, it was my farm. They're a private company exporting everything. How are they able to do that? I'm not gonna be buying a propane or gas-fired tractor. It's not gonna make it cheaper to fill up my gas grill. I'm not gonna be heating my house with it. Who's gonna be heating my house with it? You're, not me. How's it benefiting me and us? Where's all this money going? Who's, all these contractors? Do you see everybody from Lebanon County here? No, I do not. It's all out of state. Thanks, Tom Wolf.
Thank you, Ben. Lisa Dangler and then Greg Rose.
I never signed up to speak, I'm just an observer.
Would you like to?
No, I'm fine.
No, okay.
I'm
Okay,
not-
you're good.
But everything
Okay.
he said is so true.
All right, very good. Greg Rose. And then, let's see here, Joel Heisey.
I'm gonna try, I think I talk loud enough. I'm not a property owner that the pipeline is going through, but it's all around. And I see it every day now because I haven't always been a hippie. I was in the military, retired, so now I'm home for the last year. And as all I see is trucks from out of state going up and down the road, up and down the road, up and down the road. I live in Lakedale, and about an eighth of a mile, they set up a, whatever they want to call it, site, staging point, place to put dynamite in the back of trucks and not lock it, I don't know. But they just keep driving up and down, no Pennsylvania plates. Most of them obey the speed limit. Some of them don't. I've got animals, we have grandkids. They have no disregard. They don't care about the local residents. That's what I'm seeing. I'm not from Lebanon County originally. I'm from Montgomery County and Berks County. I moved up here in '95, started working at the Gap, and now I see the mountains that are around the Gap. I see a big gap in there where they cut down all the trees. And like you said, the one guy wants to get out of our hair. I got hair now, I wish he would get out of it, today. But that's probably not happening. I'd just like to know, how are they taking care of the wildlife? What about the displaced wildlife? I haven't seen a box turtle in 9 months. Do they care? Are they taking any precautions to make sure that the wildlife have homes? Probably not. When they blow some dynamite, I've never got a notice. I have no idea. All I think is it's a gap and they're firing artillery, which is I'm used to hearing. But they're there blowing up dynamite. Where is the dynamite stored? Like I said, there's a staging area or a site or whatever you want to call it that they had to be 500 truckloads of stone that they put down off of our road. And there's tractor trailers there. I don't see anything that looks secure enough to store dynamite, but I know they've been using it in the area. So where's it stored? And who's stealing it? That would probably be the next thing. Anybody know how much longer this is supposed to go on? Another year?
October.
October? Wasn't it originally March?
Keeps you moving.
Yeah, it keeps moving. I can't hear right now, I have hair in my ears, so I can't hear. But anyway, I see my wife's family, when they came over here as immigrants, they bought a farm in Lakedale. They gave plots of land to 3 of their kids. We ended up buying one house off of my in-laws' estate. So this land has been in my wife's family for a long time, and they don't really seem to care about, just hearing from everybody else, about the people of Lebanon County. And they called the sheriff. One gentleman said they called the sheriff because somebody was taking pictures. I don't even want to say what I want to do to them. But if they're calling the sheriff on a local resident, there's place they can go and it'll be hot. So, thanks.
Great, thank you. Joel Heisey, and then Tim Spees.
I'll try and give a brief overview of the effects of the pipeline on our family farm. My wife and I, fourth generations of our family farm, we're in Shaperstown area. The pipeline goes through a rather large section of our farm. It's around numbers 3,100 feet long, and we're still trying to figure out how wide their easement is. It seems that they may have taken more than they told us they were going to take. We've heard that from others, have not verified that on our property yet. For those of you who are not as closely involved with the pipeline as we have been, this starts years ago. They start showing up, they let us know where they're going to be doing this. It doesn't take long for them to remind you that they do have a right of way, and they have rights to come on the property at any time and so forth. They don't make appointments, they show up and we cater to them and we engage them in conversations and so forth. It's been very time consuming for our family just to deal with the personnel that needs to come out. Yes, they have a job to do, but for us, we do this on a volunteer basis. I'll use the word volunteer, so not to offend anyone, but we have been their volunteers throughout this process. Next, the surveyors show up. Well, first of all, they try to get you to give them the land pretty reasonably. I think the first offer that they gave my dad for 3,000 or 3,100 feet and however wide it is was $3,000 for a 3-year work area plus a lease that will pass down to heirs and assigns forever. And I remember telling my dad I couldn't even rent the ground. They were taking a farm for that for 3 years, but that was their first offer. So that gives you a little bit of an understanding of the level of integrity that they have. Of course, my dad didn't accept that, but halfway through the summer last year, we looked at each other and said we sold ourselves way too cheap to this company. Next, you have the surveyors to deal with. They'll come in and put their stakes, their flags, and we told them, you know, we're going to harvest this crop tomorrow. You know, well, they said, you know, just pull them out and put them in when you're done. So we have all the wire and the stakes to pull out so we can harvest crops and they put them back in and so forth. You get through that phase and it's construction phase, and they come in. Yes, they take the trees, they do whatever they got to do. We understood they had a job to do. We understood there's a right of way on our property. It's been there for years. We did not interfere with them, and they've been very forthright in saying you guys have been too nice to deal with. We've not done the police work that some others have done, even though we have a stream that goes through our farm and so forth. We were too busy doing other things, trying to keep them from bulldozing our manure pit bank away, which we had to stop several times, even though we put that in writing over and over again. They can't do that. We left an old hay rack sit there so they wouldn't do that, but they bulldozed into that, and it's just amazing things that they've done. The big thing that has consumed most of our time is we have a farm that has a lot of pasture, and we are not a 100% pasture farm, but we have a lot of pasture that we use. They came through and of course cut those fences so they can make their road and so forth. So ever since they've done that, we've been dealing with daily, weekly animal escape issues on our farm. It's a nightmare that every farmer has, keeps you awake at night thinking your animals are out running around. Today at 1:55, we got a call from a neighbor man. He said, bad news, your animals are all around my pond and in my yard. And this is the kind of thing that's going on for quite a long time for us and our family. Back after many phone calls and pleading, they did send one of their people out, a very nice person, to address the issue. And they said, we would like to relocate your animals, which we said, okay, that's better than what we have now. They put me in charge of finding a place to lease for our heifers. We couldn't relocate our dry cows. Those are the ones that are having calves. We wanted to keep them here. After hours of work and drawing up lists of what would expenses, they said, oh, we're not going to pay that. Apparently it's not in their budget. We just keep working the way we are and you guys can live with it. And we kind of told them we're done living with this. We can't function. We can't coexist. It's put a lot of strain on our family. It's put a lot of strain on our farm. It's put a lot of strain on our finances. At this point, we've gotten nothing more than their initial lease payment. My dad's just walking, he was going to fix fence, he couldn't get here, he's just walking in now. But one of the things I wanted to kid the politicians in the room about is this. You've received quite a few amount of settlements in the last months from this company. How did you do that? This is a rhetorical question, you don't need to answer out loud. Did you incur legal fees? Who pays your legal fees? We're in the dairy industry. Our farm is understaffed, and we don't have much of a budget. We need to have financial resources to have a budget. The idea of trying to come up with resources for legal fees is a tremendous burden to us. They basically pushed us into that corner. There's no other options for us. How can we resolve these issues with a company who has unlimited personnel and unlimited financial resources? That's where we're at with them. They've given us no response. They don't respond unless you, we just had to respond to send an email again today saying we're still dealing with the same issues. The animals are still out running all over the place. And so it's been a frustrating experience for us. Thank you.
Great. Tim Spees and then Ellen Gerhardt.
Thank you, Michael. I may regret not having prepared statements, but I could time it for 3 minutes, so I'm just going to ignore him and straight I'm Tim Spees. I'm here tonight representing Lancaster against pipelines. I hope you've heard of this, otherwise I haven't done nearly enough, and we haven't done nearly enough in the last 4 years to get recognized. I'm also here tonight representing a group called the Better Path Coalition, a group you may not have heard of yet, but you will. We'll talk about that a little later. We'll give you a real brief history of Lancaster against pipelines. As you know, we're to Lebanon South. I'm glad, I was actually first on the list tonight. I was glad that they bumped me back to let the Lebanon landowners speak. First, I wanted to hear the landowners speak. And I heard exactly what I thought I'd hear, and there's stories that have to be told. But unless we start addressing the broader issues at hand here, the democracy problem and upstream and downstream issues, we're going to be having these meetings for decades to come, month after month after month. I've got better things to do. I have a wife at home that I don't get to see very much because of my involvement in this movement. So let's talk about some broader systemic issues. In Lancaster against pipelines, another story that doesn't get told is we only had 5 holdouts for eminent domain, but that's not the story. That doesn't talk about the people that were pressured and forced to sign easements. Dan Forey, a hog farmer in Lancaster County, the 5 springs that feeds his farm, was having heart problems and had a heart bypass operation. His daughter-in-law had begged him to please sign because she had a miscarriage and was having complications with her second pregnancy due to pressure from Williams. So all these people felt as though they had to sign in order to have any control over what happened on their property. That's the story you don't hear, and it's an important story to tell. Lancaster against pipelines, as you know, once the pipeline was being built, resorted to nonviolent direct action, standing between the equipment and the land that was about to be defiled. And a lot of people, I just want to make sure people understand that nonviolent direct action has always been the catalyst for change in this country. The civil rights movement would not have taken place if Rosa Parks had taken a seat in the back of the bus. It wouldn't have happened. How many women are here tonight that voted in the last election? Raise your hands, please. Women were arrested, beaten, and killed for the right to vote. Nonviolent direct action. Let's go back a little further. Boston Tea Party was nonviolent direct action. And more importantly, it was nonviolent direct action against the world's largest corporation, the East India Trading Company. Not the British government, not the king, the East India Trading Company. And then the East India Trading Company, the gentleman over here referenced it, the sheriff. The East India Trading Company said, "Yo, King, we need more guys with red coats and guns. Send them over." We really haven't gone very far in 300 years, have we? So, the pipeline's going in like this, so why are we still continuing to fight? What's next? I want to talk about upstream and downstream. I'm going to go through this real quick. I'm going to run out of time. Who's going to hold up the card? Fracking, and I know Karen's going to talk more about this. 10,000 wells right now, industry goal of 100,000 wells. 5 million gallons of fresh water produced in one well that's rendered unusable. We have wastewater issues. We have to have wastewater plants, injection wells, where we put that toxic water back in the ground. Okay? Sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? Recently, a compendium was released by the Physicians for Social Responsibility, and they did a peer review of 1,200 fracking studies that showed 80% of these studies showed significant harms from fracking. And the governor talks about bridge fuel. He talks about, and that's a lot. It's not a bridge. There's 48 new gas generating stations that have been permitted in this country. 30,000 miles of new pipeline are planned. Quickly, former head of DEP said in 15 years, every county in Pennsylvania will be affected by fracking. That's upstream. Let's talk about downstream, climate change, methane. It's 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. And at the current rates of leakage in the process of grilling and transporting this gas, what it comes down to is natural gas is not clean burning. It's as bad or worse than coal. That's the truth. Look it up. Don't trust me. So the bridge fuel thing is a lie. The cleaner fuel is a lie. The U.S. is not in step with 200 other nations and climate scientists that said we have to stop using fossil fuels now. There was a report the other day on state impact where she interviewed a researcher at Penn State who involved in a $25 million study of the Doomsday Glacier in Antarctica. And at the current temperatures, the current rate of melting of that glacier in Antarctica will create a 3-foot sea level rise in the next 100 years. That means your beach vacation will be in South Dakota. Okay? This is all what this pipeline, these two pipelines, that's what this is about. This is what we're fighting. I appreciate the landowners talking about their stories. They need to be told we need to look at this from a broader perspective. All right. So I'm going to put some people on the spot here. Who doesn't think that climate change is real? Who doesn't think that it's happening now? I knew it. Not one hand. Not one hand is up. But if you're afraid to raise your hand and you don't think climate change is real, great. Take it off the table. Doesn't happen. Doesn't exist. It's a lie. Then let's talk about property rights. Let's talk about the illegal use of eminent domain for a pipeline that's for export. Let's talk about property devaluation. And you can't do what you want with your property, but you get to keep paying taxes on it. Let's talk about this redistribution of wealth from the working class to the wealthy corporations and CEOs. Let's talk about issues of tourism in Pennsylvania. Who's going to come from New Jersey to Lancaster County to see a pipeline, to see a gas infrastructure build out? Nobody. Who's going to come to north central Pennsylvania, to the wilds of Pennsylvania, to see frack pads, where there used to be forest and beautiful mountain scenery? Nobody. So a short-term gain for a long-term economic loss. Preserve farms in Lancaster County. Over 40 preserve farms in Lancaster County were targeted because their value is less than a farm that you can develop. They targeted these farms purposely because they would pay less for them than a farm that you could put houses on. That's what this industry does. So that's the facts. That's the truth. So let's just imagine for a second. This is in the news a lot lately. Let's imagine North Korea or Iran landed in Pennsylvania today to overthrow our government and sow seeds of terror by planting bombs in our yards or poisoning our water supplies. We would certainly mobilize and fight back to preserve our democracy and our freedom, right? Sure we would. Well, this is no less a threat to our democracy and that freedom. Fossil fuel companies are accelerating extraction efforts in the face of overwhelming, undeniable evidence that it's unwise and dangerous to do so. As this occurs, hardworking Americans are finding that the sovereignty of their homes and the safety of their communities is a myth. It's a joke and a commodity to be bought and sold by wealthy corporations. So if you, our elected leaders, refuse to accept these uncomfortable, and it's very uncomfortable. I haven't been comfortable in 4 years. If you refuse to accept these uncomfortable truths, then get out of the way and let us lead. And that's what the Better Path Coalition is about. April 13th, Friday the 13th, we went to Harrisburg and we talked to Governor Wolf and said that we're going to move this state forward. There's a coalition of groups that's formed all over the state. 65 groups have signed on to our letter. Over 1,000 individuals signed on to that one letter. And we are going to move forward with or without our government leaders. They will follow if they're wise. We are going to reduce our dependency. We're going to make our dependency on fossil fuel a thing in the past. And we'll advocate by whatever means necessary to push an agenda of renewable energy development in Pennsylvania. The world is watching. The world is watching. The tide is rising. We're going to do about it.
Thank you, Tim, as always. Ellen Gerhardt and then Ralph Bloom.
didn't expect to speak today either. But I want to thank all of you who expressed happiness that I'm not in jail. It is still a possibility. My attorney told me to behave myself, but we'll see. Anyway, I am from Huntington County, so I'm a bit western here. And we have 27 acres. Of those 27 acres, approximately 20 of them are wooded, contain a pond, stream, wetlands. This pipeline is going right under our pond, right past our stream, right through our wetlands. You know, we went through the eminent domain route. We have a case in front of the Environmental Hearing Board at the moment. We have a civil case against the Pennsylvania State Police and Sheriff's Department for wrongful arrest last year. Essentially, in our case, we have the 3 acres that the pipeline is going through. There's an injunction against us for going on our own property. We are forbidden to be on our own property. Violation of that injunction could result in 6 months in jail, plus a fine. I am currently up for indirect contempt of court for not paying any attention to the injunction and going on the easement anyway. One of the issues we have, it's not just the 3 acres that the pipeline's going through that's involved. There's an additional 5 acres on the other side that is at this point inaccessible because the only way to get to it is to cross the easement. We had tree sits on our property. We were told that we had to remove the tree sits, but in order to remove the tree sits, we had to go onto the easement, so it was a whole catch-22 thing. Yesterday was supposed to be my hearing for indirect contempt of court. We did manage to get a continuance of that, so I'm out on unsecured $25,000 bond. If I go on my property, which is now, the section surrounded by the orange construction fencing, if I step onto that property, I will owe the court $25,000 and will face 6 months in jail. So, for those of you who know me, keep me in your thoughts and just say, Helen, don't do it. My attorney is very helpful. He said, you can do whatever you want to as long as you're not on the easement. You wanted to know if I played bugle? Yeah. On our easement, we're dangerous. I want you to know you're in the room with dangerous people because we have 4 security huts and a surveillance tower on our easement to make sure that we, toe the line. Every day there's at least 6 security people stationed on 3 acres of land to make sure that we comply. I do make sure that they have a wake-up call in the morning about 5:15. I don't want them to miss their shift change. I give them a daily weather report. I advise them, to do a daily tick check. I try to be as helpful as possible. But, this is a company that has absolutely no regard for the people that they're impacting. They come in, as somebody said, you look at the license plates, there are no Pennsylvania license plates. The reason being, you bring somebody in from Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, they have no ties here. They have no family. They have no friends up here. So they're up here simply doing their job. Unfortunately, in the process of doing their job, they are ruining the environment. They're tearing people's livelihoods apart. And again, they have absolutely no regard for any of the rights that we all assume that we have as Pennsylvanians. So I just want you to all know that this isn't over. We are continuing. I always said, I gave up long ago saying that I was going to be invited to some of the Christmas parties. So just hang in there, stand up for your rights, be strong, support each other, and keep the faith. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ellen. Ralph Bloom, and then Kim Benfleet.
Yeah, folks, I'm from Cumberland County, probably one of the only ones left that really hasn't, are still fighting, because everybody else is sort of giving in. But I'm having problems with them. I was fighting with EPA today, or DEP, fighting with them yesterday, fighting with them Friday. They took my property by eminent domain and not gotten one penny out of them. They cut down 35 nice trees. I had 16 blue spruce. They were 50 feet tall. They cut them off of the ground and ground them up for mulch. Didn't offer me nothing. And we took them to court, and the two judges we had up there both said, let them do what they want. There's no problem, they need it. And we went to the Commonwealth Court. They agreed with the local judges. Tried to go to the PA Supreme Court. They wouldn't hear it. So now, just a week or so ago, we did apply for the U.S. Supreme Court for a hearing. We don't know if we're going to get it. If we get it, anybody that property was taken by eminent domain will benefit, because you can refuse them, they can take the pipe back out of the ground and do whatever you want. So you have to hope that we get it. And I spent the money to pay for it. I don't think anybody else in the state has done it. Not that I know of, but we're going to try. We hope for the best. They ruined the water. There's a bottle of my water. They said they didn't cause it. But I had a hydrologist come out, it cost me $2,300. He studied things and said, there's what they did. They did it. And we showed them that, and we showed DEP that last November. We still do not have good drinking water. They don't care. This picture here was taken 2 days ago. That's a stream that runs right by my house. Muddy water, called DEP, said, shit happens in Plain Works. Let them do it. And last night we went back to Ellen's deal. They were out there pumping water from this hole where they were dumping this stuff in the stream. They're dumping it up in my hayfield. And I tried to stop them there, and they shut it down when it was 5 o'clock, and then they started up again this morning and tried to find out what was going on. They would not show me the paperwork to give them permission, permits to do that, nothing. They ignore me, they won't talk to me. They know what I think of them, so I call them every name in the book except a white person. And I don't care, I'll talk to them. I have a gun shop and they're afraid of it. There's usually two constables there 24 or anytime there's anybody there. And one constable told my wife, yeah, she's 78 years old, she can't walk, she rides around in a gator, and they're afraid of you. I don't know why. You don't pack a gun, I told them before we're on. It's not good. We're going to keep fighting them, and I'll be on them in the morning again. If they're up there, they start that pump up. I'm going to holler at them. It's all more good. They get on their radios and call their boss, and he walks by. They won't talk to you. They won't look at you. They just ignore you. They told me the property. I had to drill a new well just to get water to flush it come over. And I have paid for that. They haven't given me not one single penny. And I don't know where it's going to go. We win this case. It's the Supreme Court. I'm going to be the happiest person around and watching them do this thing right now. And if anybody wants to talk about any problems after it's over, we'll do that. I could probably tell you long stories for the last 3 years. I've been fighting them for 20 years. Whenever Sunoco first bought this right, the old Maryland one right away, it was not maintained. When he came in, he wanted to cut 58 trees in my yard. And they the woman called me a liar because I said that's not what we agreed with. But that stopped them for 10 years, up there clearing their right of way. And we did end up, I have about 30 or 32 people in Cumberland County that were involved in this. We ended up with a 40-foot designated right of way, which really hurt them this time. Because they couldn't just take our property anymore. We had a legal 40-foot right of way. So then they came to that as the thing, so it don't really matter. But, we're just losing all around. All we do is hope for the best. And we ain't giving up. I have no intention of giving up. Went to the politician, went to the state representative. 3 different times I went to him. Took him bottles of water, see if he wanted to drink it. See what he could do for me. You know what I heard? No. Went to the state senator, same thing. You know what I heard from them? DEP said you have a lawyer, they can't do nothing. That's the help we get from our elected politicians. For the ones that here and want to do it, maybe you ought to take a note, see if you can help out some of the people. It's a good idea. That's all I'm more about to say. If anybody else wants to know anything, come see me afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Kim Van Fleet, and then John Leach.
Okay. I didn't realize I was going to be talking until I got here tonight too, although Amy did call me. I just have a few things to say. I'm probably going to be one of the shorter speakers because a lot of people have already said what's been on my mind for years. But for those of you that don't know, I'm one of the few people in this room that is not a property owner. My husband and I have been living on a farm in Cumberland County for 39 years. Our landlords actually put in a house for us because we had become like second family to them. And now we're looking at a pipeline 150 to 200 feet off our porch. And we have no control or say in anything. And I speak for the thousands of Pennsylvanians that are in the same boat, folks. There are thousands of us out there that you haven't even heard from yet because we aren't landowners, but we are directly impacted. What's happened to us, our friends, our neighbors, and some good friends I've made along the way is egregious. It never should have happened. And it's because we don't have the laws to protect ourselves. And we need to change that, and we need to change it today, and we need to change it in the future for the next generations. It all started with the eminent domain abuse. But in a nutshell, and please do not be offended by what I'm about to say, it's a direct result of the continuing legacy that Pennsylvania has of exploiting our resources at the expense of our citizens. Do you really think it's going to be any difference once they pull out from when the oil barons, the coal barons, and the timber barons destroyed our resources? But this time, things aren't going to grow back. And future generations are going to be paying the costs down the road in increased insurance rate, taxes. They're not going to be able to get mortgages because finance companies are starting to get wise and they will not finance a mortgage within 100 meters of a pipeline, nor will they refinance. So think about that. We need to stop pimping out our resources, and that's what it is. Our elected officials, no offense, okay, but you're pimping our resources. You're prostituting our resources to the highest paying job, and it's not right. It hasn't worked in the past. A few make a profit, and the rest pay the cost for generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. John Leach and then David Onspach.
Us live in Cumberland County. We have a small 23-acre farm. We're really not farmers. We moved from York County, the development, and after taking our kids to the farm show year after year, we thought having a farm would be fine. In 1935, when the State Edge pipeline was put in, I don't think the people who signed this agreement would have ever imagined anything like this. I don't think this is what they signed on for. And I don't understand why the people out in western Pennsylvania who've got their new pickup trucks don't have the plastic factory in their own backyard. Why? If the resources are out there, put a plastic factory in their pastures. Why are we affected? Because they wanted the income. They wanted their new pickup trucks. My son carried heavy equipment out in western Pennsylvania. That's when he saw the fracking going on. That seems to be the big thing out there. Our property values have gone down. And we have the Congress, the state legislature is not fighting for us, isn't standing up for us. We had an attorney, and we discovered, we let that attorney go because it wasn't doing much, and we discovered we don't have the money to fight it. So basically, Sunoco put their pipeline in, we've received not a cent, we talked to them, we said we want to buy us out. Buy us out, buy out the whole corridor. Because we have neighbors, we have a neighbor living closer to the pipeline than our house is. But every inch of property that we own is within the glass zone. And basically they've stolen from us, and we have no recourse. And they've done their work, and here we sit. And, you know, you can't drink this stuff. You can't, if it's the damage that they're doing to the ground, it's not very helpful. And we weren't able to, Ralph said that we'll be moving this property 18 years ago, and the prior owners were not on that lawsuit to get the easement, to get a standard easement of 40 feet. The guy that owned the property before us never signed on with that, so they took Ralph's property by eminent domain. They took ours by the writing in the original easement that they were allowed additional land rights, or line rights. And when we talked to the man from Sunoco, he said, by that wording, he could put a pipeline, they could put a pipeline on any inch of our property that they wanted. Where it stands now, you would think there was a standard 40-foot easement on the original pipeline. They would have gone out of that easement, and they say, if you wanted to put a pipeline below your kitchen window, we can do it. And we have no recourse. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that, I think someone who should have stood up for us in the state legislature and said, you know, we're not going to treat the people like this. But we're just a little guy.
Thank you, John. David Ansbach and Karen Farragut.
So, my name is David Ansbach. I'm from Lebanon County, Berks County, Pennsylvania. I'm not one of your, terrorists like Ellen or Ralph are. I don't have armed guards and I don't have constables running around my property, but yes. So I want to tell you a quick story about a young man and the two great wars that he's fought in his life. One war has a tyrannical dictator seizing the land, the degradation of the citizens, and the use of domestic terrorism to suppress opposition. It also features a weapon of mass destruction, willful contamination, and the eventual need for the entire nation to intervene on behalf of the citizens. The other war was fought in the sands of Fallujah, Iraq, while serving in the Marine. Ironically, both wars were fought over a pipeline full of product that was of no use to the citizens. Sadly, the first war I mentioned is the one right here in Pennsylvania, and is more commonly known as Mariner East Tube Pipeline. We're all here tonight because we have significant concern about this pipeline and its contents. Some of us are affected by the proximity to our homes, schools, places of work, and places we shop. Some of us, like me, are here because we have lost the rights to our own property. I've also lost the right to use my own well. It has become contaminated to the point I excreted blood into the toilet for 2 months before I found the cause. A horizontal directional drill sits 324 feet from my well, a distance that was confirmed to cause contamination for Aqua America's public well near the Swedesburg Road horizontal directional drill crossing. But because I don't have the money to fight, it doesn't cause contamination in my house. This is the same contamination I learned about in the local newspaper and the requirement of testing that had to be provided by Snowco, but only if the resident asked for it. If it had not been for the newspaper, I'm confident I would still not know about the water testing. Once I requested the testing, the results were not returned to me for 45 days. The test for E. coli and fecal coliform takes 24 hours. Snowco waited an additional 45 days to tell me that it was polluted. 44 days of consumption could have spelled death for my family. 44 days that they used to get their story straight. 44 days that they failed to report under Special Condition 20D that there was contamination to begin with. 44 days to explain that the acceptable drinking water standard for fecal coliform is 0 or non-detect, but the level in my well was 726. E. coli was 727. Reports written by the DEP and Snowco after the fact indicated that a field mouse could have caused the same levels of contamination. And all I can say is that it was one enormous field mouse. As I learned more about the pipeline, contamination to my well, I learned more about the whole project. I became more aware of natural gas liquids, ethane, propane, pentane, butane, and their extremely explosive tendencies. That wasn't in the right-of-way agreement, nor was the PUC status that Snowco used for eminent domain to export the products to foreign nations. I don't believe that's a supported function under PUC. Nor was the actual use of the temporary workspace leased. The equipment is horizontal directional drill that caused the contamination to my well, as it has in many other locations. I also learned about the notices of violation, the willful breaking of the law, and continued environmental damages. The uses of unapproved drilling methods, which were only discovered after a spill, and even then they were forced to be reported. Where was the Department of Environmental Protection and Governor Wolf? Are they busy sewing on their Snowco-sponsored patches? What sort of violation is necessary before we call a halt to this line and actually get a risk assessment? Where is the oversight and protection for our environment and for our communities? Today and almost every day, the drill rattles my windows, drowning out my life, 12 to 14 hours a day, most often 7 days a week. The lies have continued over and over. The trespassing outside the right-of-way, the denial of my constitutional rights to clean water, and the destruction of my land. The pollution of the environment. You might also say, you signed the right-of-way, and you're right. But I was told you'll never even know we're here. It's just another lie that these domestic terrorists are telling us. And it's time to stand up and put a stop to this pipeline. And if the regulatory agencies will not assist us, and the elected officials will not assist us, the people will stop this line.
Thank you, David. Karen Farraden and Greta Rank.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me? Yes. My name is Karen Farraden. I'm the founder of First Gas Truth for Berks County. I've been at this since 2010, pretty much like around the clock. And so I've heard a lot of stories over the years. And so I wanted to tell you a couple of them very, very quickly. One of them is the story of the people in the woodlands in western Pennsylvania in Butler County, where 56 families for more than 7 years now have not had clean water in their homes. They've had to stand on line at a church to get water from volunteers who run a water bank out of the church. And that's how they've gotten their clean water for their homes in bits, pieces at a time, a few gallons here and there. Always have to stand in line. They can't miss the water bank line. And then there's another story I wanted to tell about my friend Linda, who's in Western Pennsylvania. She likes to go out, and now this is probably not happening anymore, her son has grown up a bit, but when he was littler, they like to go out in the summertime and pick berries in their meadow. And so they always waited though until the frac waste truck came and went for the day. He usually showed up about once a day. And so this one day, they went out to pick berries after waiting an appropriate amount of time, they believed. And all of a sudden, they saw the truck coming back, and the little boy, 6 years old at the time, said, maybe he's coming back to dump some more waste. And so she thought maybe he's right, so they scurried back into the house, but before they could get back into the house, the guy stopped the truck and he started dumping waste, and it splattered her 6-year-old. And so she looked down at her 6-year-old, and then she looked up at the driver, the operator of the truck, and she said she'll never forget what she saw then, because he wasn't looking stricken, he wasn't looking apologetic, he wasn't looking horrified, he was smirking. That's what goes on every day in this state. That's what's been going on every day in the state for 10 years now, and more, longer in some parts of the state. And the point being is that this is the state government that talks about 100 years of fracking to come. We're already in for about a decade, and these communities in Western Pennsylvania and in the northern tier where fracking has been going on can't take it any longer. And now that cancer has spread across the state, and every one of you are suffering the consequences of that. But at least you have elected officials who will show up at a meeting like this one. Now, I saw a couple of them leave, just for the record, some of them did leave already. However, you have some elected officials that will show up and listen. You have zoning. There are parts of the state where this is going on where there is absolutely no protection for local communities because they have no zoning on the books. But you also have a couple of representative state level people who will come and listen to you. They don't have that. They may as well not have state representatives in the western part of the state. And so it's the obligation of every elected official in this state to recognize that in this part of the state where you're listening to people, where people like Senator Dinniman down in Chester County are speaking up against the Marion Reese pipeline, it is every one of their responsibilities, every one of your responsibilities if you're one of the elected officials to recognize that there is a travesty going on in this state. People have not been listened to, they have been ignored, their rights have been stomped all over, their property has been taken from them, they have been treated like dirt in the process, they're being made ill, and all of this is killing the planet in the process. And so it is everybody's responsibility in any elected official, any elected office, at any level of elected office to say, what's the plan for moving forward? Because this isn't it. What we need is a climate plan. We have that in some sort of very generic, sort of hard to comprehend way when they talk about things like ridge fuels and things. It's all very esoteric and not quite down on paper in some way that makes sense, and in fact we find out that natural gas is not a bridge fuel. What we need is the actual plan that says when do we have to be off of this stuff, what is the fuel mix we need to be able to get there. We don't need to talk about things that are fantastical thinking like bridge fuels and so forth. We have to recognize that all fossil fuels are bad. We need to be off of all of them yesterday, and we need the plan, and we need to start implementing the plan. And so the only principled position an elected official in this state can take with regard to fracking, with regard to pipelines, and let's not forget ethane is part of the problem because it's a contributor to climate change too. So as we move from fracking for gas, for fuel, into petrochemicals, which is exactly what's happening in the state, let's not forget that ethane is a contributor to the problem too. So what we need is an absolute ban on all of it. There is no principled position you can take in this state other than to call for a ban on all of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Greta Rank, and then we're going to have an open mic before Ann's going to close it up. But before we do, Greta.
My name is Greta Rank. I'm from Union Township, Lebanon County. I see some of my friends here. The pipeline is not on my property. It is on Fort Indian Town Gap land, which abuts my property on two corners. The problem is the pipeline limit of destruction is right beyond my dog kennels. I got a rescue. I'm a 4-year cancer survivor. I have given everything I've got and more to my rescue to keep it going. And My dogs are upset. I've gotten old boom boxes out so I can blare them when the pipeline construction's going on to help drown out the noise. All I asked from Mr. Allen, the land agent, schmoozer, was I want to know when you're coming. Just let me know. I've got dogs that I sedate because they get that upset. These dogs have been with me for years. They're not going anywhere. But they are that upset with the noise. And the other day there was a blonde there on the pipeline bragging about 19-year-olds in a drinking party at a campground somewhere nearby. And she thought it was really cool. And I almost yelled, hey, you know the drinking age in Pennsylvania is 21. Not that any of you are from Pennsylvania or that you would care. But I just learned that 25 of them were pulled out of one of our local campgrounds because now it's camping season. The local campgrounds were told, oh, we'll all be out of there by June. Now we're talking September, October, who knows? I have a couple of questions I want to throw out. All that trees that they cut, some of which were my father's favorite persimmon trees, which are a native to Pennsylvania. It's very hard to find persimmon groves. My father has dementia. He remembers as a little boy, he and his mom going and picking persimmons. He loves them. All the persimmon trees are gone. It was the last producing stand of persimmon trees in all of Fort Indian Town Gap land. When the forestry guys from the Gap heard they were going right through the persimmons, they actually came out and were picking fruit. They picked fruit a couple of years ago when this was first talked about. So they've got some young trees starting, but there's male and female trees. You don't know what you've got until they start producing. They're very hard to produce as they are. I'm very upset because they laughed. There's one female tree on my side of their limit of destruction. They laughed and said, oh, well, we'll get right away for the road because it is right along the road, and we'll get rid of her favorite tree. We'll see what kind of tree hugger she is. I keep looking for my female tree. The male tree, by the way, is across the street, and it's outside their pretty little pink ribbons. And this pipeline that's on Fort Indian Town Gap land is actually going through a wetland that was mitigated several years ago for another construction project on the Gap. So there was never supposed to be anything there. There's been no answer to the lanternfly quarantine in Lebanon County. They're taking our trees away. They're bringing the stalks in that have wood mulch in them. So how do we know they're not bringing and taking lanternfly to and from our Lebanon County area? I know there's other counties that are not in the quarantine yet. I know Lebanon County now is, and last year we weren't. So where did it come from? Where's the mulch coming from? When I first was talked to about the pipeline, and Mr. Allen was schmoozing me till they decided that they were going to go on the other side of my property through the Gap land, I said, all I want to know is when are you coming? And he agreed, he would let me know. Well, the day the tree cutters came, I was standing inside my fence line and I was told I couldn't stand there in case they do any damage to my fence line. I very loudly told them, I'm staying because if you take my trees down, there's a potential you're going to hurt my animals. Because I wasn't told I had to move them. He just laughed and walked away. And he had his little mic on him, so I'm assuming I was recorded, him saying that they will not be responsible if I get hurt on my own property because I refused to move. And I know that day Ann was out with me for support. The other thing we noticed was one of the old ash trees they cut down. As the tree was dropping, a hootie owl flew out of the tree. She was nesting in that tree. They don't care, they left. There's now bluebirds in another tree nesting, and bluebirds don't usually nest in the trees. But because of the pipeline, the guys who always put bluebird houses in that area didn't do it. So now the little bluebirds that came back are nesting in a dead ash tree that is out of their limit of destruction. So I'm very happy and I'm watching that tree carefully. Another comment, We bomb supply lines. The gentleman was here, was talking about two different individuals, and we bomb supply lines in other countries. Why is there a gas line going through Fort Indiantown Gap Land? It crosses the Gap Land, two different places on the east end of the Gap. One is right behind my house, right next to my house. The pipeline zigzags down the mountain and zigzags and goes down again and ends up the front of my property along the road. It's right there. It's not even 6 feet from my property line. They're pretty little pink and blue ribbons, because blue is wetlands, and they just couldn't wait to clear all the trees out. I want to know where the water is coming from that they're constantly using to wash down my roads. The Illinois Water Company, or the Illinois Truck Rental Services, makes regular runs past my house, and that blessed guy with his backhoe and the sweeper, he sits across the street and makes regular runs around the local roads, which, gee, that's nice. We don't get dust, we get mud. But where is that water coming from? I haven't been able to follow the truck to find out where that water is coming from. And do they have a permit to draw that water? I'm looking at Joellen, and I know she's with the Swatara Creek Watershed, and maybe she has an answer for that. But it's just a thought. I can't talk to Mr. Allen because after I confronted him and said he lied to me numerous times, and I ordered him off of my front flower bed that he was stepping on when he came to tell me to move away from inside my fence line, I'm done talking to him. My neighbor will talk to him. My neighbor got several $100s for 5 trees. Versus a tree guy who can't get any money. My neighbor agreed. He has a little part on his property that they took for the pipeline. And so he talked to Mr. Allen, and he still talks to Mr. Allen. And he had several $100s he got for 5 trees they cut down on his property because they had to relocate the electric lines for the pipeline. 2 weeks ago, I lost electric for 8.5 hours unannounced. I went from my microwave, filling up bottles to bottle feed a batch of kittens that are orphans, to sitting down in front of my computer to see what's going on with the day, to no electric. And it was 8.5 hours because somewhere down below, they had to relocate some wires. And it's not the wires across the street that they said they're going to relocate eventually, but it's coming. And again, I would like to know when they're going to do that. I run a small business. I have a nonprofit. I would really like to know when this is coming, but I get nothing. One of my friends lives on Hoover Drive. She was told, and that's also in Union Township, she was told they were going to come test her well. And they said they did a long time ago. And now they called her because of the incident on Interstate 81. They said they're coming back to test it again, but they haven't shown up yet or said when they're exactly coming. Because she would really like to know what's going on. And is her water still safe to drink? She's got livestock on her property. She has no water. She would like to know what's going on. She's not getting any answers or who to even talk to. When they were first working on my property or next to my property, they blocked my mailbox for 2 days in a row. I went in and called the post office. Hey, I just saw my mailman have to go around the 3 boxes in front of my house because there was a pipeline vehicle parking and blocking it. They said, you have to ask them to move. Well, I'm sorry, but I can't go talk to them and ask them to move. So I did make a phone call, and I see there's a red flag over there. I'm just really upset. I'm sorry. And I did get them, their supervisor, the next day when the truck came and she backed right up in front of my mailboxes, she was told to move, and she went, why? And she looked around and he pointed right at me and I waved, because I was watching, because I was going to call the state police and make her move, because I believe that's a federal offense to block a mailbox. I don't know. I don't think they care about that either. And there was no reason she really needed to be where she was with her, because she was a flagging force guarding the truck stand. I have UGI line on my one side of my property, and now I'm getting the 42-inch line on the other side of my property. If there's ever an incident, I'm done, and there's nothing I can do. UGI, they've been in for years. The neighbor across the field was told, oh, that's an antiquated line. I don't even think it's being used. When he bought the property across the field from me, now he knows better. Thank you.
Is there anyone else, non-elected officials, who would like to say a word? All right, I'm going to take the prerogative here. I'm a non-elected official, so I'm going to say a few words, and then I'll turn it over to Ann to wrap it up. I have a very simple message for elected officials, especially those that aren't here. Because those that are here are showing that they, this is on their radar screen. My message is simple: do your job. Your job is to enforce the Constitution. What's the Constitution? It's a set of rules, right, about a contract between citizens and the state, right, where citizens agree to pay taxes and obey the law and provide military service if the government calls on it. And the government, in turn, promises to protect our rights. And those rights include health and safety, those rights include property, and those rights include, in Pennsylvania in particular, the right to a clean environment. Article 1, Section 27. So do your job, protect enforce the Constitution, protect the rights of individuals, again, and rebalance what has become very imbalanced. The government is supposed to represent the citizens. But in fact, it really seems now that the government is representing big business, and especially big fossil fuel industry, in preference to ordinary citizens. And that is not fair, it's not right, that these projects fall under the heading of eminent domain, that it's public use. I mean, you find this in the Constitution. And this is an abuse and a prostitution of this concept of eminent domain and of public use. This is not for public use. So I'll end there and turn it over to Ann for some final thoughts.
I think this is a really tough act to follow after all that we've heard tonight, but I do have some things to say. First of all, on behalf of concerned citizens of Lebanon County and Lebanon Pipeline Awareness, we really thank everybody who's here tonight for attending the listening session, and a special thank you to everybody who was willing and brave enough to share your story. We know how difficult and how uncomfortable that can be, especially it seems in Lebanon County it's difficult for people to do that, so we really appreciate you coming out and speaking. It's what we have to do to make a difference. People need to know what's going on, and if you don't speak up, they don't know. To those who did speak tonight, we encourage you to keep telling your story. Meet one-on-one with your legislators. Tell them what you said here. Give them a written copy of your comments if you can't meet with them. Let them know what people dealing with the pipeline on their property have to endure. There is a ridiculous notion out there that when a pipeline comes through someone's land, those property owners are well compensated for the easements. That pipeline construction always goes smoothly and without problems. That the final result will be a safe pipeline, because pipelines are safe, and that none of this is a big deal. But I think we've all heard tonight stories that completely dispel that myth. And yet we know this is only a small representation of what's really happening along the pipelines, because there are a lot of voices missing tonight. Voices that fear either financial or physical retaliation on their property from the pipeline operator if they speak out. We know some voices are missing because I think they'll be treated better if they remain quiet. Or maybe they're just afraid of being bullied on their own land, like we've heard happens, by contractors or land agents. And even worse, we know some voices have been legally silenced because they've had to sign non-disclosure agreements when faced with no choice situations that need to be resolved, like water loss or contamination. We hope that the elected officials and candidates present here tonight have truly heard these real problems and concerns presented by our speakers. And while many of our legislators are missing this evening, please be assured, we're going to send them a video that we'll be taking of this program so that they can understand these problems and hear them. It's time for all of our elected officials to step up on behalf of their constituents who often feel abandoned by their legislators. We've heard that tonight. How many of you have been told, well, there's really nothing we can do? We question why in Lebanon County there are not information resources readily available for people facing pipeline easements so that they can make informed decisions. How many, or even make the decision not to have a pipeline property? How many of you here have had to search for facts and information on your own? Yeah, exactly. How many of you are now pipeline experts because you had to do that? We question too why there are no legal resources for people in need of solid legal advice on very detailed issues of pipeline easements. Our number one advice to everyone was always retain an attorney well-versed in oil and gas issues and eminent domain condemnation proceedings. And the number one question we always got back was, well, where do we find one of those? Because there's no resource list. It's very difficult. We question why many of our elected officials never share construction information with their constituents or offer them an opportunity to ask questions about the construction process, even though pre-construction meetings were held for first responders and local officials. We question why these property owners have been left largely to fend for themselves against big corporations with deep pockets. And we especially question why eminent domain is granted for export pipelines that seem to have little to do with public good or need. We question why it seems many of our elected officials don't question anything about pipelines at all. And we question why pipelines, fossil fuels, and climate change aren't even a part of the discussion in many of the political forums taking place right now. Although the almost $60 million spent by the fossil fuel industry on lobbying in Pennsylvania through 2016 and the additional $9.5 million in campaign contributions probably answers that question. Quite honestly, we feel our government and its regulatory agencies in general have failed their constituents through the pursuit of these pipelines and fossil fuels. Our elected officials at all levels do not consider our environment, our properties, our personal safety and health as the priorities that they need to be. They are ignoring and violating our rights under Article 1, Section 27 of the Pennsylvania Constitution that they've all sworn to uphold. We hope our elected officials and candidates here tonight have listened carefully because change is needed, and we expect our elected officials to lead the way to that change, because as you've all heard, people's lives depend on it. Thank you.
Okay, on behalf of Lebanon Pipeline Awareness and concerned citizens of Lebanon County, thank you very much for coming, for sharing your stories, many of which were very heart-wrenching. There'll be an opportunity just to linger around and speak with each other, engage in informal conversation. So this ends the formal part of the program here. So thanks again for coming, and we hope to see you again.